Let me start the recording back up. Okay. Let's start with a select option drop down. See how those work. So we make a select tag, and what goes inside of select tags? See, select gives this little drop down box immediately, but how do I fill out the different options in here? It's a select option drop down. How do I define an option? Option. So let's make 3 options. Let's say this is a select option drop down to pick a city to travel to. New York, Paris, or North Dakota. It's not a city, but I'm pretty sure it has the same population as a city. And we would like to be able to select one of these, but also have the one that you select saved in states. Something you usually do with an option dropdown is put an empty option with no settings. So it starts off on the empty one, and it forces them to choose. Does that music come from over there? One sec. Okay, so we have an empty option, and then they have to click it and do this. So maybe you'd say something like, select a city. And you're like, cool, select a city. Which one? And when I click New York, it should save that in state. So we're still going to use these 3 attributes, name, value, and on change. Where would the name go? Well, the name goes on the select tag. Because remember, select option isn't to say we're going to save 3 different things in state. We're going to save one of these in state, whichever one they selected. So we don't want to put the name on each one because then we need 3 pieces of state. So we're going to put it on the select. So the name will be city. So up in state, I'll do the exact same thing as I do with the text ones. I will add a city entry that starts off empty. Then the on change, would that go on the select or would it go on each option? That would go on the select as well. So we have name and on change. What's the 3rd attribute we're missing? Value. With a select option dropdown, does the user have the ability to give you information? Can they type? No. So you have to define what the values are. These are hard-coded. So if they click on New York, the value of this option is New York. And this is what's going to be saved in state, so you have to decide how you want to format it. I might just do the full thing, actually. It's a string, that'll work fine. Value for Paris will be Paris, and the value for North Dakota will be middle of nowhere. No, just kidding. We like North Dakota. We'll say North Dakota, not to offend any North Dakotians. Cool, so now that's the big difference. Name and on change go on the select, but each option needs to be told explicitly what value do you represent. But why is the on change here if this is actually what's changing? This is something with events and just how they work. You heard of the term event bubbling? Bubbling events. Yeah. So events by default bubble, meaning what direction do bubbles go in water? Up, yeah. So when an event occurs here, let's say I choose this option, it checks the option. Do you have a handler? Nope, and it bubbles up to the next element until it finds a handler for that event, and that's where the event stops. So I could put an on change on every single option, but since I know the event will get caught by the select, I'll just put it on the select. So the select will know if any of these get changed. And then it will that will fire the handle change. The event.target.name will be city. So it'll update city. And the event.target.value will be whichever one they chose. So the nice thing is, do I need to change anything on my handle change? Do I need to check for a select? Or does a select also have an event target value, just like a text box? Right, checkbox is the only one we have to account for. Everything else is event target value, so our handle change is done. The fact that we added city to the state and put the attributes on the right pieces, this is already working. So let's open this up so we can see our React DevTools and make sure. React. There's city. I'll select a city. Got New York. There's North Dakota. So it's saved, just like our text. And they're all updating appropriately. What's fun with React DevTools is I can also mutate state over here. You see my checkbox click over there. Or I can, yeah. Cool, so that's select option dropdown. Just remember, name it on, change on the select tag, explicit values on the options. Any questions with selects? Cool.
So, that first option, how did you make it so that
Oh yeah, they'll still be able to click it.
yeah.
I wonder if we can just say disable. There we go. So I mean, if you wanted to show that first, you kind of got to keep it there. But hopefully they wouldn't click on select a city. Or you do something in your handle change. If the event.target.value is this string, then that's a problem. Or you could give this a value. You could say value is none. So if they choose that, you're still saving something.
How would you make it to where it reverts back to select the city after this?
Ah, yeah, okay. See what you're saying. So let's add it to the new person object we're making. So the city, this.state.city. And then we'd like to clear the is muggle back to false and the city back to an empty string. Let's see if that's enough to make it work. Nope, okay. That's a good question. I don't know how to make this revert back off the top of my head. 10 points to whatever class can solve this. Oh, I see what you're saying. Like put a default in here, like that. Nope. Ooh. Well, let's look at this. W3 select inputs default option. Option selected attribute. How can I set the default value for HTML select element? So you can say it's selected for the one that you want to be default. So we could say by default selected is, so they say make the string selected, but this may be different in React. Let's see. We're seeing vanilla JavaScript and vanilla HTML, trying to figure, that's not it. Maybe it's just selected. Everyone loves guessing games. Nope. So that will work with vanilla, not with React. So let's change our question in React. Different question. React select option input. Default. Bunch of words. Hey. We might have found a rabbit hole. There's a default value field. Okay, let's try that. Default value. Maybe it's just a field, or do we have to specify? We do. Maybe we have to say value is none. Default value should be none. Let's see. Nope. Okay. Let's work on figuring this out, but not right now, so we can just cover the last few. A good question. I do not know the answer. Awesome. Something to figure out today. Fortunately, it works, though. It just stays on North Dakota. Other input types that we've used, we should cover, is radio. Let's do radio and textarea and call it good. So what was the trick with radios with vanilla code? Yeah, how do I say this radio and this radio should not be able to be selected at the same time? There's an attribute we give them that are the same, so we know it should only be one or the other. Yeah, if they have the same name, they can only have one or the other selected. That's the same with React. So we'll call this one gender. That's a quick one, sure. We'll say wizard or witch. Sorry, I told you I watched Harry Potter this week. All right, and just because they have the same name now, we can only select one or the other. And this is pulling double duty in React. This is also matching up to the piece of state we'd like to update. So up in my state, I'll add a gender. Well, does the user, just like select option dropdowns, does the user have the ability to give us information on radios? No, so their values must be hard-coded as well. So this wizard represents, or this radio represents wizard. This radio represents witch. Now, where does the handle change go? Humble. And now, let's see if React State is keeping up with it. Gender, we've got wizard or witch. That handle change is doing so good right now, keeping track of every single input we're entering in, submitting them all at once. Okay. Any questions on radios? Kind of just flying through these because they're pretty similar. What's that? Yeah, same, similar attributes. If that's, sorry, I'm not sure what you're saying.
Oh, like when you go ahead and state the state.
Oh yeah, here. Yeah. So gender this dot state dot. Oh, that's the reset. And then when we're saving it, gender this dot state dot gender. Let's see if they actually reset. Yeah, and this one's staying. So we have to see how to reset selects and radios. But the setup is very similar to text. One last input type. Who has used this before? A text area. Text areas are expandable and retractable boxes that users can type in. Ooh. What's the difference between this and a text input? The ability for them to drag and drop, pretty much. The attributes, everything else are the exact same. So this text area doesn't need a type. By default, it's text. So we'll give it a name. This is maybe description. So in my state, I'd go add another key for description. The value would still reference that, just like the other inputs, this .state.description. And the handle change goes on here as well. Let's see if that's enough to make it controlled, and then we'll talk about how do we give it the ability so they can't do this. This can be nice on some sites, but other sites you're like, no, I just want a box this big. Don't let the user change it. So text areas do have the ability to customize how big the area is and whether or not they can change. Let's see if it's at least storing our data one last time. So we're looking at description. And notice when I hit enter in a text box, text area, I hit enter right now. What did it add for me in my text? Puts a new line character in. So text areas keep tracks of new lines, of tabs, of spaces. They're great. That's how you keep track of it, but how do you control the text area? Most of it's inline styling for like the configuration. You can add some styling, but we want, I believe, I may have to look, I think it's min width, or maybe it's just width. Say it's 200. Oh, well, let's look that up. Text area attributes. Rows and columns, there we go. So you tell how many rows you want. This is how tall is it. Let's say we'll give it 10 rows. And calls for columns, we'll give it 30. See how big that is. Okay, so we can expand the column and make it a bit wider. But the user can still change it. So I believe the attribute you can give text area is resize and set it equal to false. Dang it. My memory is not serving me well today. It'll be in here. Ah, disabled. No, not disabled. It's not even on here. Disable text area. Hey, cool. Resize. Resize none. Has to be part of the styling. Cool. So this has to be done through styling. So style is an object where resize is none. And now we can't resize it. Thank you for bearing with me through all the form stuff. Hopefully you see that forms are their own beast in programming. Like people's jobs sometimes are just to work on forms for a while because we're building very simple forms right now. Even with all this complexity, they get 10 times more complex because forms you go to online, they kind of guide you through the form, right? It'll focus on the input you need to type in. As soon as you're done, it will focus you to the next one. All that has to be programmed into it with on-focus events and on-blur events. So a lot of people, instead of building it from scratch, you'll find pre-built form components off of like React Bootstrap, Material UI components that have that functionality built in. And then you just plug in what the name, value, and on-chain should be. But let's build one ourselves before we start using others.